What's up, guys? Today I'm working on my 1995 Ford Ranger again with the 3.0, and the problem today is that the oil pressure sensor isn't reading correctly. Right now the gauge is somewhere in the middle. As soon as you turn the truck on, it drops down below zero. Now this could probably indicate a problem with the gauge right here. It could be the sensor or the wiring somewhere in between, and I'm gonna go check it out real quick. The oil pressure sensor in this truck is on the passenger side, way back over here. You can barely see it, if at all. It's right there. Now, what I did to verify that it is the oil pressure sensor is that I disconnected it. I took the wire off of the sensor. That way it's just open. And the way these sensors work is that when they're open, you would either have a full reading or a zero, depending on how it's made. And then when it's shorted out, it'd be the opposite. So like, let's say if it's open, it's gonna read zero, and then if it's shorted, it's gonna read max. So it could either be one or the other. In this case, I'm just going straight to open to see what it does, and I think it's gonna read zero. Back in the truck again with the wire open. I open the key now to the on position. It didn't go up. Turn on the truck and it did nothing. So this is showing pretty much a good sign that it's just the sensor. Shorted out, I just grabbed the little jumper cable and attached it onto the wire from the car, and then grounded it out right here on this bolt. Okay, so after grounding out the sensor, I open the key and it goes to the max reading. In this case, it's right in the middle, because with Ford it's pretty much a dummy gauge, so it's either on or off. And then I turn on the truck and it's just gonna stay right there, right in the middle. So by doing this little test, I verified that the gauge works correctly. The wiring from here to that sensor is intact, and the problem is the switch itself. So here I have the two oil pressure switches next to each other. This is my new one. This is the original one. I broke the top of it off because I was trying to use my 1 1/16 socket, but it wouldn't fit that well because it had the transmission dipstick tube right in the way, and well, I messed with it and broke it. And then so I went out and I bought myself this oil pressure sensor socket. It's not as thick walled as my 1 1/16, and I was able to get it off with this little extension and my 1/2-inch ratchet. To put it back on, this one seems like it's gonna be a lot easier because it's a 7/8 and it's a bit thinner, so hopefully it'll go on a lot easier. So after a lot of messing around with a bunch of different extensions and sockets and whatnot, there it is. The brand new sensor is installed. Got the terminal hooked up, and it's time to go check it out and see if it worked. Here I am back in the truck, about to start it up. So I open the key, no reading. Turn on the truck, and there you go. Just so you could get an idea about the socket sizes. So here's the 1 1/16, the shallow socket, and it's not gonna fit, of course, because you have this thing. So when you put it all together, the little sensor part is gonna stick below and it's gonna hit your ratchet, so it's not gonna let it work. For the 1 1/16 deep socket, it could work, but I wasn't able to get enough space between the dipstick and the socket, because you could see that there's a clear difference. This one is a lot thinner than this one is. So here's the oil pressure sensor socket that I used. I got this one at AutoZone, and it's two different sizes. It's the 1 inch and 1 1/16. Just to compare the actual sensor part, you see it fits perfectly inside there, and then in your 1 1/16 it does as well. One other thing you guys should check if you suspect there to actually be an oil pressure problem in your vehicle is check the oil level, because if you have very low oil, of course you're not going to have oil pressure. And then if you wanted to check the oil pressure itself, you would need to just remove the oil pressure sensor or the switch, and then get yourself an oil pressure gauge with the matching threading. Thread the gauge into the vehicle and start it up, and you should have, at least for this truck, at least 7 psi. Anything less than that, you know, you have a problem. But if you are over 7 psi, then you can go ahead and suspect the switch. Just another little thought, this truck does come with different sensor types. Mine, I got the 1-wire sensor, and this one's different than the one that actually has a little connector. I think that's 2 wires going into it. So before you go out and buying the parts, take a look at your truck real quick and see which one of the sensors you have.